Hi, my name's Belinda Moore and welcome to the Purpose Under Pressure webinar. Now, we're going to jump straight into it because we don't have a huge amount of time today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Belinda Moore and I've been working in associations since about 1993. So it's over 30 years and I've written lots of books, lots of white papers, the association anti-comic strips, and you can find copies of all of those electronically on our website, www.smsonline.net.au. I do a lot of research into association trends, trying to understand the common success factors for high-performing associations so that we can actually bring that across and all benefit from that knowledge. And the ways that we distribute that is through things like the Associations Evolve Journal, which is a global thought leadership journal for associations, and I'm the editor of that publication. And over the last 30 plus years, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of associations from around the globe. And one of the things that I was really excited about was the ability to do this research project. The Global Association Research Initiative came because I kept seeing associations, no matter where I was working with them, no matter what the country, they all seem to be facing very similar challenges. And I wanted to generate an evidence base to understand, is that actually the truth or is that my perception? And so we did this research project to take a deep look at what's going on globally. Now, we had 586 responses from professionals across 30 countries. There was really strong participation from association CEOs, senior leaders, boards, as well as suppliers as well. So we've got a really good all-round perspective on what's going on. And today, I'd like to give you the highlight reel. You're welcome to jump onto our website if you want to read the report or listen to the podcast or read some of the articles that have spun off from that. But I just want to give you the highlight reel from the report, so you can get a sense of what's happening in associations globally at the moment. Now, first of all, one of the things that we have seen from this is that change is constant and it's getting quicker. When we went into COVID, we all thought, right, well, we're managing through this, but at least we can see an end to this upheaval. Now, as we transfer from the Industrial Revolution into the digital age, we are seeing a massive transition. Change is not only present, but it's constant and it's increasing. And associations, it's not just a matter of adjusting and then I'm ready for what comes next. It's a constant period of associations needing to understand how they can thrive in this landscape of constant change. And as we're going through this transition, what we found is that there's a lot of challenges, of course, but the challenges that are most predominant are the fundamental ones. How do we deliver value? How do we engage and retain our members? How do we ensure we're financially sustainable as we do this? How can we set a strategy that charts a clear roadmap forward into the future? And then how do we attract new members with those top 5 challenges? Now, these were things that we saw across the board. Challenges were at different levels, but one of the interesting things about these particular challenges is that they're fundamental to the existence of associations. When we look at associations, throughout history, when you strip back all of the legal frameworks that might sit around it, essentially it's people coming together with other people to advance a cause of mutual interest. That fundamental purpose of associations isn't about recruiting and retaining members. It's about harnessing that collective to achieve whatever that cause is, whether it's the advancement of a profession or an industry, an actual cause, whatever it happens to be. And associations are trying to understand how they can realize that critical role that they have to play in this new operating landscape that we're sitting in. And that's one of the reasons why it wasn't surprising to see this first finding that came out, which is they understand that strategy is important. There's no question that having a roadmap forward is critical. But 83% of the respondents said that they struggle to prioritize actually getting that strategy not only created, but executed over the urgent day-to-day demands, which mean that most people feel stuck in reactive mode. And that was a recurring theme, no matter the country, no matter the role. One of the things that we saw is that strategic work is constantly being deferred as there's more urgent, visible, member-facing tasks that we need to get into. We did see a bit of a thing where those under 40 were more likely to see challenges with strategies very significant as opposed to significant. But one of the common themes here was people want to be strategic, but they just can't create the time for them to be able to do it. And this paradox is really at the heart of many of the frustrations that we're seeing throughout this report. So the thing that kind of leads to these resourcing problems, this being able to find the time, is caused by this, the financial pressures. The financial pressures reported once again globally were persistent and sector-wide. Most associations are still relying on their core revenue streams, and they're struggling to build the capacity that they need to actually fund the change that they need to make in order to adapt to this changing operating landscape. And it's a lot of the smaller associations, they're reported still being very much in survival mode, trying to do more with less. But even in the larger associations, we saw a lot of people talking. The challenges are a bit different, the way they express them, but financial sustainability is still a significant challenge. And really, where are people earning the money? It's all around membership, events, education, or training, and sponsorship. And very few people have had any real success diversifying away from those core revenue streams. And where they are doing something in that space, it's more leveraging off these in different ways rather than creating new sources of income. And once again, that is something that we saw consistently across the board. One of the other things that we did note, in addition to that financial pressures, is where is it coming from? So we saw that membership is actually, for 41% of associations, was increasing, and events and education revenue was also on the up with 43%. But where it started to get a bit of a more nuance is the sponsorship revenue. 27% of people reported a decline, and 26% said it's holding steady. But this aligns with other research that we're doing, where we're seeing that sponsorship revenue is harder to generate. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. I mean, there's so much competition. Back in my days, my kids hate me saying, but back in the 90s, if a company wanted to get to a particular market, an association was a fantastic channel to do so. But now there are so many different options for a company wanting to access a market to use and to leverage that aren't associations. And so now we have so much competition for the sponsorship dollar, and sponsors are wanting more than ever before to get a demonstrated return on what that investment is that they're making. And one of the other challenges that was reported as well when events and education is that even if you're making the same revenue, the cost of delivering events and education is going through the roof. And even to deliver the same experiences always, ignoring the fact that we need to lift our game because we've got to deliver exceptional experiences because there's so much competition in that landscape now, it costs more than it ever has before. So it's costing more to deliver the same. And so while the revenue might be slightly up, one of the interesting things that people talked about was the fact that the costs are up even more so. So once again, that pressure on resources is coming through so strongly. A lot of people talked about false starts, and with revenue diversification or leveraging better revenue from their existing sources. And that was really interesting because I'm a real fan of the fail fast, going and trying lots of different things in a framework that enables you to test and test and test until you find what works. But one of the things that came out of this is the need for associations to have even these simple frameworks like this decision-making matrix to understand how to make decisions about where they're going to put their resources when looking at how you can be more financially sustainable. And this simple matrix here is, if something's got high potential revenue and low risk, well, it's a quick win, get it done. But if something's got high effort or risk and very low revenue potential, it's a time waster. And having a more structured approach to how you're diversifying revenue sources is really important. One of the things that we've seen, not just from this research, but from other research we've done, is the need to first look at what your core revenue is and ensure you're optimizing that before you even start the revenue diversification discussion. Because we've seen reported through this and through other research that there are a lot of associations who are really leaving a lot of money on the table by not leveraging from their existing revenue sources better. But one of the other things that kind of makes this even harder is, look, burnout wasn't a question. I actually didn't ask a question in the survey about burnout, but in the answers, it was screaming back at me. One of the things that became really clear is that burnout is widespread and systemic across the entire sector. There's chronic under-resourcing, constant role juggling, and a perpetual catch-up mode. It's really concerning to see the level at which it came through in the answer to almost every question. And really, there's clear signs here. We do need a resourcing reset. and to understand what do we need to do, how do we need to be structured to support our staff and our volunteers to live up to the potential of the organization and themselves. And there were so many quotes that came through, but this was one of the ones that I thought was most pertinent. One of the respondents said, I've never felt so needed and so unsupported all at the same time. And there really is this need to be leveraging tools, for example, better digital tools and AI tools that enable people to optimize everything that they have at their disposal and reduce the amount of busy work so they can focus on what really needs to get done. Because one of the biggest limiting factors for associations to be able to adapt to this new operating landscape that we're entering into at the moment is the staff capacity and the volunteer capacity. And so this is absolutely critical to address this. Now, one of the problems that we have found, though, is that while association professionals reported being really eager to grow and to learn and to upskill themselves, and whether this is staff or volunteers, we've found that because they're so burnt out and because there's so many pressures on their time, they're just not getting to it. And this is a real challenge because it means that people are sticking with what they've always done and not giving themselves the space to be able to talk to others and find out how other people are taking a different approach, or go and get the skills that they need to be able to effectively deliver their role in a more productive way. And there are a lot of associations out there that do fund or have budget for their staff learning. But one of the things that we're seeing is either A, people just aren't using it because they're like, I haven't got enough time, or that funding tends to go to the more senior people, which is a real issue for associations that are committed to wanting to change effectively and adapt and grow. Because it's those junior people, the grassroots who are executing, the ones who are often at the coalface to see what's going on, who you really need to be building up with their skill sets so that they can deliver more effectively, whether that's to be able to enhance their productivity or to be able to deliver a better member experience. These are the people we need to be looking at a whole of organization approach. How do we look at each staff member and take them on a learning journey that's going to ensure that they've got the skills not only to fulfill their own career potential, but to deliver to the organization, to the association, what it needs right now. So this was a really consistent thing that we saw. With associations, if associations are about bringing people together with other people, and whereas technology is just an enabler of that connection, then it's the humanness that's so critical to get right. That's your staff, but also here, your volunteers. We talked and we asked questions of volunteers to try and understand what motivates them. And it was really interesting to see the consistency in the responses here. What came through very clearly, it's purpose. Having a reason to get involved, whether that reason is the advancement of the cause or the advancement of their own career goals. Everybody that was commenting was talking very much about the why in those, this is the reason I got involved. They want growth, they want connection, but associations are really making it hard for themselves because you have these people who are wanting to give and wanting to be part of it, but there's so many barriers around, their ability to have time, the kind of support they're getting, understanding what their role is, or the culture, potentially not even giving them spaces where they feel welcome or they feel comfortable. And we asked these volunteers what kind of support that they're getting from their association. And in most cases, it's barely the basics of what you would expect should be put in place to support your volunteers to be more successful. And associations who are wanting to better leverage their volunteer communities could do a lot by enhancing those structures that they're using, taking away the the busy work, providing the technology that enables them to streamline the different activities that they need to undertake, providing them with templates and with tools and with checklists, and reward and recognize those volunteers who are contributing. I think in the association sector, volunteers have got a huge potential to be harnessed. I know people say, people don't volunteer these days. They do. People want to volunteer, but they want to volunteer in different ways from what they traditionally did. Ad hoc volunteering. I mean, there's some research has come out previously that has shown that the critical segue between an uninvolved member and an involved member is an ad hoc volunteer, finding those little short, sharp ways to get people involved, making it purposeful. No one wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to sit on a committee or I want to sit on a board. People are driven by purpose and the why. And associations who can focus on the why and make it easy to interact and recognize their volunteers can harness this huge workforce behind them. And one of the things the research is showing is they're just not being effectively harnessed, and there's a lot more that we could do to be able to support these groups. And one of the reasons that this is also important is at the moment there's so much competition out there. Like I said, back in my day, there was very little competition for an association, but nowadays people are time poor. There's lots of different options out there, and there will always be competitors for your products, your services, your advocacy, your communications, your events. But one of the things that's really hard to compete against is a strong and engaged community of people. In fact, I did a separate research project recently where we looked at what were the things that made long-term members stay. So we talked to lots and lots of long-term members of associations to understand why had they continued to renew for so long. And you know what? In every single instance, the answer was the same. It was some variation of professional connection, collegiality for purpose, coming together to do something, and that professional community. That's the heart of association. That's the humanness of associations that makes them unique and so powerful. And your staff and your volunteers are such a key part of making that happen. Now, one of the things that I did talk about briefly before is I talked about this idea of, well, technology is an enabler. And this is something where I know a lot of associations have struggled to make their technology something that's actually useful for them. Now, almost everybody said technology is important, but 72% of people actually said it was really challenging. And a lot of those challenges come because people implement technology, often well-meaning, but in ways that don't include the rest of the organization, aren't connected to existing systems. And when other technology comes in, it keeps getting layered on top of and on top of and on top of. And so when the association goes, well, actually now we want to undertake a more considered digital transformation, you've actually got a huge task ahead of you because you're having to take and restructure all of these old systems which aren't necessarily talking together to bring it forward. And this is something which we had a lot of comments in there talking about the fact that, you can buy the right technology, but implementing it, it's the environment it's dropping into. What are the workflows? What are the business rules? How do we bring our staff on this digital transformation journey? And that's what's sticking people up. There is some good technology out there, but how do we make it work for our association? This lack of time, lack of budget, lack of resourcing, lack of training, and also cultural issues within the organization with some people being quite resistant to change or certain types of technology is an issue. Now, associations who can't adapt into a more streamlined digital environment have a challenge, because when we've talked to younger professionals, both as members, volunteers, and staff, this is a significant frustration. These are people who, grew up with Spotify and Uber and Amazon. These younger people are used to a seamless digital experience. And if their association isn't delivering that, it's not just a frustration, they're going to look elsewhere. And it erodes the engagement and the credibility of the association if it can't be seen to deliver. But when you look at the feedback, the sector's not tech adverse or averse. It's tech frustrated. It understands these tools are essential, but it's just another pressure point for these teams about, well, I haven't got enough time already, and now you're going to put a digital transformation on top of me, and we've got these 6 different systems that don't really talk to each other. And so when we're looking at digital transformation, associations have got to think clearly first about what is it that we need? What do we need to do to deliver internal productivity and to enhance the member experience and to streamline our workflows? Pick the system that's going to work, but then spend more time than you did on selecting the system on ensuring that the implementation brings everybody on board the bus. And definitely don't assume that people have even got what an expected level of digital understanding. I do a lot of focus groups, and I had a focus group a few months ago, and I remember it because we pulled aside some staff members to talk to them with this association. And this staff member, she admitted, she said, look, they're talking about all of these amazing digital tools, but I actually don't really know how to use Outlook properly. And she was too embarrassed to admit that she didn't even have these basic understanding that a lot of people assume that people already had. And she'd been in the association for many, many years, and the association had not had the staff training and the skills assessments in place to have identified here's somebody who's being left behind. So when you are doing your technology, take the time to speak with all your staff members and understand what they need in order to bring them not only on board with whatever the new technology is, but to the level of technology understanding that you need in your organization. I can jump on that bandwagon, but on a related one, and as those of you who see me speak before know, I'm very, very passionate about AI because it's a very big part of our business, is helping associations to adapt and integrate AI to enhance their productivity and member experience. And it was really nice to see that so many associations were optimistic about AI's potential. 90% said that they believe AI will have a positive impact on their association. 89% expected it to benefit members, but only 0.3% have actually integrated AI in any meaningful way. And we asked people, like, where it's being used, what are you doing? Mostly content and communications, which is the ultra basic level of using AI. The main barriers to adoption is, lack of clear internal policies. There was data security and ethical concerns. It was really interesting looking at the comments, because there were so many comments in this one. There were people were talking about things which weren't correct. Their understanding of AI and the differences between different large language models like Minstrel or Grok or ChatGPT, they didn't have it. And that's probably why there was the third barrier to adoption was staff hesitation and low digital confidence. And then lastly, no time or budget to experiment. If you're talking about any single thing that you need to be looking at the moment, an understanding of AI, adoption and integrating into your organizations is absolutely essential. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the incredible things that AI can do that will transform your organization. That's for another webinar. But essentially, it's not a matter of should we, it's a matter of how can we adopt this most effectively in an effective risk management as well, and integrate it so that we can deliver. Because if you're not going to do it, somebody else won't. And I can tell you, just from even in our office here, the way that we've integrated AI is equivalent to having another 12 staff in our offices here. It enables such a massive productivity enhancement. It enables us to, for example, if I'm doing research, we can upload like this research here. In fact, I'm going to give you the story. So when we did this research, there's hundreds of, I think there was, every person got a different question, but there was over 100 questions. If someone went through the whole thing, there were thousands of data points, there were thousands of comments. There was so much data to look at. Now, as a human, I couldn't go through and compare all that data by myself. So what I did is I created a thing called a GPT. So you've got ChatGPT, which is your large language model. You can go and a lot of people use it for creating content. But in ChatGPT, you can create a GPT, which is a one-trick pony, like an app on the Apple Store, if you can, for example. Now, what you can do with that is I said, right, I set up this little GPT and I've set up the SurveyMonkey file so that ChatGPT can read it. And I've created a GPT that just helps me do the data analysis for this. And I uploaded all the questions, the metadata, the base data that came through, the background, everything in there. And as I set this up, I said to my AI, I said, can you tell me your name? And Scout named itself. I said, okay, do you have a gender? Do you want me to gender you when I talk to you? And Scout came back and said, well, don't be silly. I don't have genitals. I can't be a gender. But if I could pick, I would like to be feminine. So she is Scout. And Scout was fantastic because we worked together to produce the report, to analyze the results. And I could talk to Scout just like I was talking to a human. In fact, with this GPT, I can then go into it looks like a ChatGPT interface. I can go and ask it a question, and I can say, right, well, based on this data, if I'm a professional association based in China, what would be my main 3 considerations? So you can actually ask questions direct, and Scout will talk to you. And when I say talk to you, I mean talk just like we talk. So when I presented the findings of this in Frankfurt earlier on this year, Scout co-presented with me, and the audience were actually able to ask her questions directly of the data. That this is just one example how AI can transform what you do, because she was actually able to find linkages in the data that as a human I wasn't able to find, because it would be comparing 8 different data points. This enables associations to really use an evidence-led approach to what they're doing. Because imagine if you could upload all the data about your conference attendees and all of your past reviews and all of the different issues that they might have, and then say, right, for student members, can you create a 2-day program that's going to be extremely compelling for them? There is so much potential to be leveraged. We did an AI board member for the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, or an AI board advisor, which is exactly the same thing. You can ask questions directly. So, if the government wants us to do this policy, what position should we take and why? I can't stress this enough, which is why I've kind of labored the point here, but you need to be looking at not only how AI is going to affect your organization, but also how AI is going to impact your members. One of the things that we saw, even from the volunteer respondents and also from other research that we've seen, is association members are struggling. They don't know what's coming, and it's big. It will transform most industries and professions that we have in society today. Now, it is the role of associations to step into to become the translators, the trail guides, not just the adopter themselves, but they are entities that are uniquely positioned to lead the way and help our members understand what the future is going to look like and how they need to start adapting now. And if you don't do it, someone else will. But that shouldn't be the case, because associations lead their professions and industries. They need to be able to understand what's coming and guide their members through, and also, where necessary, advocate for change and support that's going to smooth the pathway forward and minimize the impact of what's coming. Because in the next few years, our society is going to be fundamentally reshaped by AI. And as an association, we need to adapt, but also as leaders of our communities, we need to help them to adapt through as well. And it's so critical to get this right. But one of the things that drives this is engagement. So one of the things that we saw is engagement's a top priority. 85% of people said that, this is really key for us. What we saw in the data is a real shift to more flexible, personalized, and member-centric, member-led approaches, which is fantastic. And engagement, it became really clear, it's not a communication issue. Engagement and communication aren't the same thing. Engagement is a systemic thing that should be embedded throughout your organization. It's a strategic function, not a service task. And one of the things that we found is that progress in truly engaging members is often limited by, once again, the technology, outdated systems, teams who are burning out, a lack of clarity about what it is the association is doing. We still see associations trying to be everything for everyone, when really the associations who are what we would regard as high performing tend to focus on what their core role is and what that cause is that the community is uniting to achieve. But we did actually, just as a matter of interest, when we were looking at how members get value, we did see a bit of a difference between individual and organizational member organizations. For individual member associations, predominantly like professional associations, members talked about education, community, and career development being some of the core things. Whereas for industry bodies, predominantly like organizational membership bodies, the focus on where value was being delivered was very much around advocacy, benchmarking, collective sector outcomes type things. So this is an area where we did ask, what's stopping it? And as I say, tech is such a big issue. Small teams who are doing multiple roles with little room to innovate, and the operational overload. But really, when it comes to engagement, it's about how can we deliver value that feels immediate and personalized to me, but at scale. And this is a real challenge for associations globally at the moment, but it's something we have to get right, because you could have the best value proposition in the world, but if you're not engaging your members in a way that they see that, they realize that value, then you might as well not be doing it. And one of the key ways that people are delivering value, engaging with their members, is events. And this was a really interesting section to do. 78% of people reported that events are harder to deliver than ever. They said costs are going up, member expectations, delegate expectations are shifting. They're so much higher than they've ever been. And sponsorship's just getting harder and harder to deliver. And associations were talking about the need to innovate and come up with different ways to deliver events that engage their delegates in ways that aren't just having a talking head up the front talking about stuff. They talked about events being a year-round ecosystem where it's not just a one-off, it's part of an ongoing engagement throughout the whole year. And do you know, one of the really interesting things that we saw in there is associations who reported strong difficulty with their events were actually more likely to be struggling with resourcing and strategy and revenue and everything else. So it was really interesting that we saw events could be regarded as a bit of a barometer of the health of an association as to how successful they are. But the other thing we found in the comment section, it was hilarious. Everyone hates hybrid. I mean, people acknowledge that it's a tool that has its place. But one of the things that came through really strongly is the drivers for in-person events and hybrid events are kind of fundamentally different. And hybrid now has gone from, oh yeah, we should always do hybrid, where we had that kind of moment of insanity during COVID, to, well, we should use hybrid only when it's going to deliver real value, because it's so much more challenging to do hybrid, because essentially you're running two events at once, and face-to-face and an online. But one of the things that is absolutely clear from this is events need to be understood as to why we're running an event and how can we innovate to deliver the outcomes that our delegates want. And it's not just about giving information. If someone wants information, they'll watch a webinar or read a book. It's about how do we deliver experiences that solve our members' challenges, that enable them to connect with their community, get that collegiality going, and empower them to greater success in their careers or in their businesses moving forward. Events are absolutely fundamental to the success of associations because it's where communities are built. But having a really strategic approach to that events function and integrating that in with that year-round ecosystem, with how we're engaging, how we're delivering that immediate personalized value, is absolutely critical. And it's not about doing more. It's about doing less. It's about doing the stuff that really matters, doing the stuff that really makes a difference, doing the things that enable our association to execute on its purpose, and leaving everything else to others to do, because you don't need to do everything for everyone. There was an interesting one that we did see is we asked people, because a lot of people consulting, and we asked those who indicated that they were consulting, because they have this kind of sector-wide perspective, because they go over a lot of different associations. We asked them what their perspective on the trends are that are impacting associations. And it was interesting. There's a few things came forward through one of them. A lot of the consultants out there are former association people themselves. So they've actually worked in associations, and now they've got this kind of external insight coming through. And the most common things that they said is, look, associations are eager to change, but they don't know how. Burnout is widespread. This is another area where the free text comments went off when it came to burnout. Strategy execution is a major gap. They're good at developing the strategy, but find implementing challenging for all the reasons that we've discussed before. And there is a hunger for peer learning, to actually connect with others and find out what they're doing, how they're addressing problems, how they're innovating, and identifying what they can do to take it into their organizations to drive change. But also the skills of those association leaders, whether it's CEOs or boards, varies widely across the sector. And there's work needed to try and enhance the skill set so people understand how they need to lead their association to be more successful. There was one thing other, and I wanted to bring this up. There's 1 in 4 respondents actually are already consulting, which was really interesting because that's across the board. And 42% of the rest are considering it in some form in the future, whether it's on the side or full time. It now appears that consulting is a mainstream career path for association professionals, with a lot of people doing it as a side hustle. So I have my full-time job, but maybe once every month or two, I might get a consultancy job on the side. And I actually think this is really healthy because it enables people who are excelling in something, and it could be something really specific, like, education program design, to take these unique skill sets where they've achieved success and acting like a bit of a bee, translate that into other associations so that they too can emulate that success. Because one of the things that's really clear at the moment is we're in a period of rapid change. We don't all have the time to have that really steep learning curve. We need to benefit from the learning curve of others. And the best way we can do that is to tap into consultants who've got the specific areas of expertise that we need. And for those of you listening who have ever considered consulting as an opportunity, think about it even as just a side hustle, because it might be that there's other associations out there who need the expertise that you've got. But I did want to finish off today with what does it mean? So there's a lot of data in here, and if you get into the report, it's a long report, there's a lot of data in there, but essentially, what does it mean for an association? Well, essentially, when you go through it, it's distilled. There are 5 strategic imperatives for associations who want to be successful into the future. There are 5 things that they need to get to do and to do well. The first is they need to understand how they can navigate in an uncertain environment. I mean, it's not about waiting for stability to return. I got to tell you, it's not coming. It's actually going to get worse. So we need the resilience to be able to thrive in this period of change. Because there is, whether it's you can see it here in my little tree, but geopolitical instability, economic volatility, the digital AI evolution, which is going to hit bigger than you think it is, workforce disruption, climate disruption, societal polarization, which is such an issue. These things aren't going to go away. So as an association, how do we go, all right, this is what it's going to be. How can we work within that? The second imperative is get your strategic infrastructure in place first. You need to get these strong foundations. And that means you've got to have the right people. Your staff and volunteering frameworks have got to be robust. You've got to have the right technology. You've got to have a strategy, a clear roadmap to the future. You've got to get your financial sustainability right. You've got to get your core revenue optimized and then look to diversification. Your governance has to be not just exceptional, it's got to be fit for purpose. Do you know, in all of the years that I've worked with associations, never once have I been able to attribute success to a particular governance model. When I look at this high-performing associations, what I see is when the board and the CEO have an excellent relationship and the board uses evidence and has robust yet informed discussions and they listen to the members and it's really member-led. It's about that culture that's so critical to get right. And the last thing is, member experience. And member experience isn't thinking, how can we create experiences that our members want? It's about putting the member at the center of everything you do. Everything is member-centric. So when you build things, it's from the perspective of the members. It's not a task to say, I'm going to build this and this and this. It's about looking at it from the members' perspective, what they need, and delivering an experience that's going to make a compelling difference to their lives. The third one, your financial sustainability. Don't start with chasing just new dollars. Get the most from what you already do well. And then from those foundations, look at diversification. This is so critical because I go into associations all the time who are struggling financially, and invariably you'll look at their membership or their sponsorship or their events or their education programs, and there's always going to be money that they're leaving on the table that you can pick up, and sometimes with really, really simple things to improve it. The fourth, deliver meaningful value. There is so much competition for your members' money, their time, their passion. You need to deliver something which isn't just about giving them stuff, it's about giving that feeling of belonging, taking someone from that transactional decision to join to that emotional decision to belong and feel part of your community, to feel welcome, to feel safe. And that's such a critical area. This comes back to the culture of your organization and it's the little things that matter, how staff answer the phone, how quickly people get back to them, as well as then up to the big things about what is the meaningful impact you're making on the lives of your members every day. The last imperative is this, and I pass it across to you, which is lead with purpose. Associations don't exist to make money for shareholders. Associations are collectives of people who come together because there's a purpose that unites them. So use that purpose to as a compass to drive your way forward and figure out where you need to focus to make an impact on your purpose. What's the roadmap that you need to make it happen? Because associations are needed now more than they've ever been needed before. That was probably the clearest thing that came through from this research is people, communities need their associations. They need their associations strong. And associations now need to step up and lead with purpose into the future. And with that, that is the quickest summary of that report I think I've done. Thank you very much for listening to now. If you want more insights or to subscribe to our e-news, you can go to our website. And I've done lots of articles off this report. So you'll find them by going back through our blog. And if you subscribe, you'll get them sent to you. And if you need any help with your strategy or with research, membership models, or AI implementation, either for yourselves or your members or someone just to show you what could be done, drop me an email. I'd be really happy to help with you. And of course, any questions, let me know as well. Thanks and have a great day, everybody.